any, but she did know my past.
Saved her for yesterday. Email.
Is this in the way?
We're good.
So I didn't ask you.
Not anymore.
It's tempting, right? You see the cross.
Start playing it. Don't walk too far away.
Somebody has to.
Rat in a drain ditch, turn back and more of the same. Same old rat in a drain ditch, caught on a limb. You know better, but I know him. Like I told you what I said, steal your face right off your head. Now he's gone. Now he's gone. But he's gone. He's gone. Like a steam locomotive rolling down the track. He's gone. He's gone. And nothing's gonna bring him back. He's gone. Like a steam locomotive rolling down the track. He's gone. He's gone. And nothing's gonna bring him back. He's gone. Ooh, nothing's gonna bring him back. Nothing's gonna bring him back. Nothing's gonna bring him back.
Just let me see if I can, because we've got 38 people online. I just want to see what's going on here. Hang on.
We're gathering here today.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hopefully that'll get working.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? No. Well, let's try that again. How about now? Good. Okay. Excellent. We're just stalling a little bit as we sort out our Wi-Fi because we do have actually a couple dozen people joining us online. It'd be lovely if they could tune in. But as I'm sure many of you know, technology does not always work in our favor. Neither does traffic. But we are here. And what has worked in our favor is that it is a absolutely beautiful, beautiful day, the end of August, in this gorgeous place that I am positive Mark would be just thrilled. Thank you. Just absolutely thrilled. What a special place. So I just want to thank everybody for helping create this space. I think when we come together to remember somebody and celebrate their life, what is most important is each and every single one of you, because you carry a part of that individual, a part of their story that without you, it would be incomplete. In the Jewish tradition, we say that we hope somebody's memory is for a blessing, and truly the blessing is how an individual touches us. And I was just so profoundly struck in talking to a few people before coming here today, and in seeing comments on Mark's story, on his obituary, that truly he was somebody who touched so many lives. And so when I pulled in, a little frustrated, running a little bit late, and I was pulled to the side because the parking lot was already full, I was not in the least bit surprised that this is an individual who has so profoundly shaped and so profoundly impacted so many people that I think that is also a fitting tribute as well. How are we doing on the live stream? We're we're still working with it, but we'll go ahead.
Go ahead, Rabbi. We're recording it too. We're out.
So again, thank you everyone for being here today. What the trajectory of our time is going to look like is to say a few of the traditional prayers of mourning that are said in the memory of somebody Jewish who has died, and also to create some space for sharing of memories from his loved ones. But then I think truly the important part of our time together is going to be what happens afterwards as we mingle and gather and share stories and just enjoy this absolutely beautiful day, this absolutely beautiful setting. I hope you'll join me at the bottom. If you see, when you came in, we have these pamphlets that are helpful in guiding us. And why don't we begin by reading together Psalm 23. It's on the inside of the first page of your pamphlet. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I truly believe that the being here, right, in these green pastures and still waters, that this is, whether you believe in God or fate or the cosmos or whatever that bigger thing than us is, that this is truly the house of such a divine and sacred presence. El male rachamim, shochen bamromim, hamse menucha nechona tachat kanfei shchina, bemalot kedoshim utohorim, kezohar harikia mazhirim, et nishmat Mordechai Tzvi ben Michal v'malka shehalach leolamo, v'gan Eden tnei menuchato, Ana ba'al harachamim hastirehu beseter kanfecha lolamim, utzror bitzor hachim et nishmato, Adonai hu nachalato, v'enuch pashol mishkavo, v'nomar, Amen. At the top of the following page. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Mark Harold Sherman, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace, and let us all say, Amen. I believe next we have a song.
Hi, I'm going to be singing Fire and Rain by James Taylor, but I'd like to invite everybody who knows the words to join for the choruses so that we can all sing to Mark together. Just yesterday morning, they let me know you were gone. Suzanne, the plans they made put an end to you. I walked out this morning and I wrote down this song. I just can't remember who to send it to. Oh, I've seen fire and I've seen rain. I've seen sunny days that I thought would never end. I've seen lonely times when I could not find a friend. But I always thought that I'd see you again. Won't you look down upon us, Marky? You gotta help us make a stand. You've got to see me through another day. My body's aching and my time is at hand. And I won't make it any other way. Oh, seen rain. I've seen sunny days that I thought would never end. I've seen lonely times when I could not find a friend. But I always thought that I'd see you again. Been walking my mind to an easy time, my back turned toward the sun. Lord knows when the cold wind blows, it'll turn your head around. Well, there's hours of time on the telephone line to talk about things to come. Sweet dreams and flying machines in pieces on the ground. Oh, I've seen fire and I've seen rain. I've seen sunny days that I thought would never end. I've seen lonely times when I could not find a friend. But I always thought that I'd see you one more time again now. Thought I'd see you one more time again. There's just a few things coming my way this time around now. Thought I'd see you, fire and rain. Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Zoe. That's so beautiful. So we're going to hear from a few folks who are going to share stories and memories about Mark. I'd like to invite up Dustin first to speak.
Good afternoon, everyone. For those that don't know me, I'm Dusty, the son of Saeed and Janice. My parents sadly could not be here today as they had a prior commitment to take care of my brother Sean's kids out in Denver. Grandparent duty calls. Both they and my brother love Mark dearly and send their care and support to everyone here today, especially to Holly. My dad wrote something for me to read, but there's no way I'm going to get through that in one piece, so we'll save that for the end. Mark Sherman. Marky Mark. Marcus. Dr. Sherman. My wife Christina and I spent the last few days pouring through hundreds and hundreds of photos from across Mark's beautiful, crazy, adventurous, funny, and loving life. We've been so in awe of what a multifaceted existence he lived, as exemplified by the incredible turnout today. There's not even enough chairs, standing room only, Mark Sherman, incredible. We're here to celebrate such a special person. So how do I fit into the complicated equation that is Mark Sherman? Well, my dad was one of Mark's oldest friends. They met in 1963. I asked my dad if he remembers the first time they hung out. He couldn't say exactly, but he remembers lots of late night card games, dope smoking or organizational activities, and rollicking conversations going deep into the night. Everyone would eventually just pass out where they were, fully clothed, never wanting the night to end. I don't come into the picture until the 90s, me being the lone kid dragged to these endless dinners with Mark, Holly, Susan, Alan, Miriam, Michael, Jackie, and my parents. I didn't know what the hell anyone was talking about, but whether I was conscious of it or not, these rambling meals is where my love and appreciation for food, film, music, art, history, and politics were all born. It's only in hindsight that I realized that I was raised by some absolute hippie freaks, and I'm very grateful for that. Mark and Holly treated me as their own child. They were like a second set of parents. I think a lot of people can agree to that. I'm just sorry that I couldn't have told Mark how much he meant to me while he was still with us. But I'm so grateful for his support and generosity about my life and my career. It's rare to have that kind of unconditional strength in your life, and Mark was always there. I'll never forget his panache for finding free street parking anywhere in our cursed city. The parking karma was unparalleled. That's a parking pun. Yeah, unparalleled. Yeah, you guys got it. I don't have to explain it. Yeah, true. Karma. Oh, see, that's why we have Holly here. The infectious and silly laugh, I'll hear it ringing in my ears forever. The gracious sensitivity his eyes held. I always looked forward to seeing him at dim sum and intensively discussing whatever movies or shows he'd seen, commiserating over our beloved Bad Luck Bulls, and hearing about what new adventures he and Holly had stumbled their way into. Truly, forever young, wide-eyed, and curious. My brother and I always talk about how we hope to live as joyously divine as Mark and Holly seem to. Thank you, Holly, for all your warmth and grace this week, but really not just this week, for literally my entire life. And finally, Mark, I'm sorry about the vests. So, when I was in high school, Mark came over to my house with all these beautiful vintage vests he tried to gift me. And me, being a petulant teenager, I rolled my eyes and was like, I'm not going to get my ass kicked at Evanston High School wearing these ridiculous vests. Now, after looking at all these photos of Mark through the years, I kept noticing these beautiful vests and I realized how badly I messed up. So I hope it's not too late to take you up on those vests. Thanks. Okay, so here's what my dad wrote. My dad wrote a poem for Mark. I heard your voice let me start over. I heard your voice in the wind today. I stopped and turned around to see your voice. Sorry, I'm gonna go take 3. I heard your voice in the wind today. I stopped and turned around to see your face. The warmth of the wind crested my face, and I stood silently in grief. Life is finding the way when there is no way. Real world is wider than the physical end. Mark will dance in the rain with you and walk with you in the storm. The end is neither the end or the beginning. Mark disappeared like a thief in the dark of the night. No matter how many times I say I can't believe he's gone, I know he's gone. I believe he's gone. Being Mark and being with Mark. What a sweetness in doing anything. Never feeling past as yesterday, not feeling future like now. And now time is standing still. No joy in happiness and no pain in suffering.
Thank you, Dusty. Tony, next. Wow. Mark would be so touched by this. So for those of you who don't know me, Tony, Mark's nephew. And a couple words to share. So all of us who knew and loved Mark understand that he was a product of a very specific time, place, and family. His parents, our grandparents, Max and Mary Sherman, were a singular couple. Max immigrated to the U.S. from Poland at age 9 and left school shortly thereafter to support his family. Mary's parents fled a shtetl in Russia. She was born in Chicago, but by age 10 was working as a cook in a Jewish hotel in Rochester, Minnesota. They found each other, fell in love, and settled in Albany Park, the bustling epicenter of Jewish life in Chicago in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Max was a larger-than-life wild man who embraced outrageousness, laughter, and fun. Mary was his kind, modest, devout counterpart who kept the most pristine home in the city. He was the focal point of every party or dinner and reveled in provoking, teasing, bellowing vulgar jokes. She prepared ungodly amounts of delicious food, gave of herself completely, and had to constantly scold him to cease whatever trouble he was inciting. "Stop it, Max," was a near constant refrain. They balanced each other perfectly. Evie was born in 1938, and Mark a few years later, towards the end of World War II. Mark was doted upon by his mother and older sister, who had always yearned for a baby brother. They adored him. As a young child, he was studious, dutifully completed Hebrew school, unlike our mother who was kicked out, and loved to play on the streets with the neighborhood children or build with his Lincoln Logs or erector set. Max and Mary, Evie and Mark.
They were a remarkable family. Their humble third-floor apartment became a literal and metaphorical refuge. If a childhood friend had to escape a troubling home life, there was always more room to be found in the bed Mark and Evie frequently shared together. I remember them both laughing hysterically about the time when Mark was about 12 and awoke to find 4 or 5 nubile 18-year-old girls sleeping in bed with him. By the 70s, both Mark and our mother had fully embraced counterculture values. She was well on her way to transforming into a vocal feminist and political rabble-rouser. And to Lisa and me, Mark had grown into our super fun and cool, hippie-ish uncle who had seemingly countless interesting friends and girlfriends. Nearly every Friday night throughout her childhood, a revolving cast of characters from distinct worlds would gather at Max and Mary's table. Bubbies and yentas from the neighborhood, uncles, aunts, and cousins from across the city and suburbs would sit next to political activists and former nuns, psychologists and professors, musicians and community leaders, all brought by Mark and Evie. I distinctly remember as a teenager watching the leading jazz critic in the city try to explain the brilliance of Miles Davis and Monk to a table of confused great-aunts from the old country. Mark emerged from this rare, cross-generational, cross-cultural, and multicultural amalgamation of family and community, where laughter was a constant, the generosity was intoxicating, and everyone was warmly accepted, except Republicans, of course. While my mother obviously identified more with the outrageousness of their father, Mark always struck me as embodying some of the best qualities of both of his parents. His mother's kind, gentle, graceful disposition, and his father's upbeat, good-hearted, occasionally naughty persona and laughter. And from both, Mark clearly gained the empathy, compassion, generosity, and values that would make him the beloved man he became. And then one day he showed up with Holly. She was beautiful, radiant, witty, sassy. She perfectly matched Mark's playfulness, intelligence, zest, and love of life. Max and Mary instantly adored her. We all did. Evie, Bernie, Lisa, and I were thrilled to embrace her and integrate her into our family. "Finally, you got this one right," Max declared. After they eloped to Vegas, we all celebrated. My mom would later say that she had gained a new sister. Mark and Holly, what a couple they became. They savored life and became a vital presence in the lives of so many friends, family members, colleagues, neighbors. For 40 years, I doubt there's been a more universally beloved and adored couple in all of Chicago. You can't talk about Mark, however, without discussing his considerable professional accomplishments. Mark chose to work at Cook County Hospital, at the time one of the most challenging institutions in the country, because he wanted to be on the front lines serving a diverse population where he could have the most impact. I've often heard my father and many of Mark's colleagues rave about what a deeply insightful and impactful therapist Mark was, as well as an uncommonly dedicated and caring mentor to the numerous interns he trained over the years. But Mark was also an influential trailblazer. In the very early phases of the HIV crisis, when the country was immersed in rampant fear, fear-mongering, and demonization, Mark personally established one of the first therapeutic clinics in the country, certainly the first in the Midwest, that addressed the emotional and psychological well-being of HIV patients. Of course he did. Mark's example of responding to adversity and crisis with compassion, creativity, and action has been a deeply influential model and inspiration for me and many, many others. Mark has been interwoven throughout the fabric of my life. At virtually every milestone, he and Holly have been present. Because we are a small family, our relationships are vitally important. Over the last couple days, I've been flooded with so many memories of Mark. The numerous Bulls and Cubs games we attended together, the oh so many holidays, parties, and meals, and the difficult situations and losses we confronted together as a family. From the moment our children were born, both Mark and Holly have been essential to them. Their beloved Uncle Marky played on the floor when they were young, dressed up as Dumbledore for Harry party birthdays, introduced them to dim sum in some of the best restaurants in Chicago, and so much more. And he always showed up with his famous Jell-O molds, which will forever rank among their all-time favorite and most treasured foods. Mark lived his values fully. He had a gracious soul and a giving heart. I know that all of us are still in shock because it's unimaginable that someone so vibrant, so real, so present can be gone. Uncle Mark, you were deeply loved and will be forever missed. Thank you. And now I'm going to hand this off to my little sister who has some personal reflections.
Hi everyone, I'm going to ask you all to bear with me because it's going to be very hard to get through. I'm going to ask you all to bear with me as this is going to be very hard for me to get through. Mark Sherman was my uncle, my godfather, and my friend. My Uncle Marky, though he was all of our Uncle Markies, as he was so beloved by so many. Anyone who came into Mark's orbit was struck by his singular laugh, that unforgettable and contagious laugh. That sly smile, the way he cocked his head in curiosity while listening intently to someone speaking. He had a zest for life rarely seen. He lived life to the fullest. When people talk about a life well lived, Mark truly defined that notion in every sense. And he was so much fun, the absolute most fun person, always up for an outing, an adventure, a party, of which we shared many together over my entire life. But most of all, he was a deeply compassionate and caring person who left an indelible mark on our lives. Our close bond started soon after my birth. I had been born prematurely and in an incubator for many weeks. As family lore goes, after I finally went home, and for the next 2 years, I wouldn't stand to be apart from my mother. I would wail at the top of my lungs. The only other two people who would allow to hold me were my father and my Uncle Mark. Inherently, I knew I was safe in his arms. For as long as I can remember, Mark always treated me with respect, and like I was much older than my years, even as a young child. He had that ability to relate to people no matter their age. In a sense, he seemed ageless. Growing up, I always thought he was just the coolest human being with the most interesting friends, and wanted to be around him and a part of it. 2 early childhood memories that stick out and served as important learning lessons in my life I'd like to share. When I was maybe 8 or 9 years old, he got into a horrible car accident in the middle of the night. My mother brought him to our house after he got out of the hospital to recuperate. After my mom had warned me what he looked like, with bloody bandages and bruises on his body, I was frightened to see him. But being worried, scared, and curious at the same time, I decided to peek my head and slightly cracking open the door and saw him lying in a bed covered in those bandages. I remember thinking he looked like a monster. Somehow he knew it was me, even though he couldn't see me staring straight up at the ceiling, not able to move. He called out to me to come sit next to him. He could tell I was terrified. So of course, in true Mark fashion, he made total light of his situation, saying, "It's just me, your Uncle Marky, under these dressings, with the same big old nose, which will probably be even bigger after all of this." Both of us falling into a fit of laughter, even though it hurt him to laugh. Even through his extreme pain, he wanted to teach me not to be afraid and to laugh through the pain. which he did subsequently many times in the years to come. Mark and I shared a great love of animals. When he started the psychology program for people with HIV and AIDS that my brother referred to, he knew I had a huge stuffed animal collection that I treasured. When I was little, I would take turns carrying them with me, take them to school, pile them around me on my bed while I slept. Then one day, Mark came to me and said he needed to talk about something serious. He explained he had a few patients who were young men who were sick and alone. Their families had shunned and disowned them, and they needed comfort and support. He asked if I would go through my beloved animal collection and give them a few to gift these patients so they too could sleep with the little friend. Even though I was getting a little older, I remember asking why I had to give him my animals. Why couldn't he give them other stuffed animals? He said, "Lisa, you have so many that have brought you love and comfort. You're now getting a little older. Don't you want to share that with these young sick men?" I looked at him, probably with a big pout on my face, and said, "Okay, you can have 3, but I need to carefully choose which ones." We then went through my entire collection together. "No, you can't have Fluffy." "Okay, you can have Mr. Penguin." "Oh no, you can't have Mrs. Possum." On we went until I selected the 3 I could bear to part with. After he had gifted them to his patients, he came back and told me how happy it made them, and that they slept with them every night. I've thought about this over the years. Could Mark have gone and bought new stuffed animals for them? Of course he could have, but I believe he wanted to share with me, not only in terms that I could understand, the work he was doing, but also a life lesson of being kind, giving, helping others, and not being greedy about what you have if you're lucky enough to have it. That is who Mark was as a person. Uncle Mark was there for a number of firsts. One of the things he and my mother loved to do, which he prided himself on, was taking my brother and me for food outings to explore different ethnic cuisines when we were young. Off we would go for our favorite Thai food, to our favorite Thai food restaurant for garlic chicken, for Japanese and Indian food, or to Chinatown, before these types of cuisines were standard American staples. Every year we'd meet at the Uptown Art Fair for our favorite teriyaki chicken cooked by the Buddhist temple. None of our friends had heard of these dishes we would go on about. Our dim sum brunches became a family tradition. Those early childhood food adventures developed our palates that led both my brother and I to have a deep love and appreciation for these cuisines and cultures. My special bond with Uncle Mark continued as I got older. That fun side of Mark could also be a little naughty at times. We share that in common from the Sherman family gene, as Tony spoke to. Another first for me is a cherished memory from high school. I had a sleepover at his apartment, and that night we went out with his friends. I remember being in a convertible, driving in the back seat with the wind blowing, with music blaring, as we headed to Greektown. At the restaurant, he let me drink a beer along with everyone else. Maybe something else was consumed as well that we won't talk about. The way that he and his friends treated me made me feel like an adult for the first time in my life. It was such a fun night I've never forgotten, and would have many more over the coming decades. Then Holly came into his world and changed all of our lives. The perfect partners, their mutual love of travel, films, music, food, art. They made sense. I thought she was so cool with her purple head of hair and her penchant for speaking in French. She quickly fit right into our small, crazy family. Together they built their beautiful home, so perfectly decorated with collectibles from their travels. I still love seeing the items I've gifted them for my own travels in their chosen spot every time I visit. I was always amazed, as was probably everyone else here who stepped inside their house, at how every single item seemed to find the exact right spot, which Mark would instantly realize was an inch or two out of place if someone happened to pick up a tchotchke or a flip book. You would see him eye it, then walk over and arrange it just perfectly. Mark liked order. Together, Mark and Holly explored his deep curiosity for the world, always up for an adventure, for checking out a new art exhibit, restaurant, movie, or festival. Just 2 weeks ago, we all went, Mark and Holly, Tony, Karen, Theo, Levi, and I, to check out an outdoor photography show on display in the South Loop. Afterwards, we went to Al's Italian Beef on Taylor Street for dinner, followed by Italian Ice, a favored family tradition. As an adult, Mark felt more like a friend to me than an older relative. He was beloved by all my friends near and far, my Evanston besties who I grew up with, some of whom are here, my dear college friends from Madison, my best friends in New York. Each and every one of them loved Mark and are heartbroken by his passing. The same goes for Tony's closest friends and our family around the world, many who are joining here today online. Mark was lucky to have traveled extensively. Oh, how he loved to travel and to visit New York. We have so many wonderful memories together in my longtime adopted city. He was one of those rare people who you could take anywhere, as is Holly. From parties in NYC at my friend Actor Alan Cummings' apartment, to my favorite late night dining club Omar's, where he fit right in, and everyone he encountered, including Alan and Omar, would fall in love with him. His presence made everything more fun. Mark and Holly and I shared a great love of pop culture in all forms. We would often text about our latest TV show obsessions, regaling each other with our personal takes, as I'm sure he did with many of you. Most recently, all of us, including Tony, Karen, Theo, Levi, absolutely loved texting about the show The Bear, sending each other articles to understand exactly which locations and restaurants in Chicago were included in the show, discussing in depth each episode and character. We would send favorite movies we had just seen, excitedly sharing a must-see. I still have his final recommended movie that I need to watch. Past lives, if anyone else wants to see it. Mark was deeply charitable and caring about the world we live in, a supporter and defender of social justice. We texted frequently about the current state of affairs, as well as funny pics and anecdotes on Instagram to counter the recent political narrative and outrage. I often sent him and Holly, once sent him and Holly a profile for Benji the Bernedoodle, whose father takes him on endearing cross-country adventures. Mark fell in love with Benji as much as I did, and when he found out that this internet dog got sick, he donated to his surgery. In closing, Mark lived a life of purpose, trying to make a difference. He saw beauty everywhere. Over the past few years, I've had the privilege to participate in a few African American homegoing memorials, a true celebration sending the dearly departed to their home. While Mark's departure is shocking to us all and way too soon, I am happy and relieved that I was in town when it happened, so that I was able to be at his side and to hold his hand along with Holly and Tony while his body departed this world. I take comfort in believing that he is now home in the universe, and that I'll carry him with me everywhere. I love you, Uncle Mark, and will miss you immensely. Our laughter, our banter, our fun outings, our frequent texts, and most of all, our camaraderie and love. But I will carry on all of those things with your beloved Holly, with you at our side in spirit. Goodbye for now, Uncle Marky.
I'd like to invite up Holly.
Good thing I'm not wearing stilettos. I'm Holly, but you probably figured that out by now. I'm going to read the words of one of Mark's former colleagues, Renslow Shearer, whose daughter is here today. Because he couldn't be here. He's in Canada, but he sent me some thoughts, and I really wanted you to understand his work. I touched on it in the obituary, but this really says it. And then after that, I'll read you some thoughts of my own. Mark was the first psychologist on the small AIDS care team at Cook County Hospital in the early 1980s. And he taught me everything about human dignity in his daily interactions with his patients and coworkers. He understood the urgency of helping people to maintain their autonomy and agency in the face of a fearful plague with no treatment and an often overwhelming public hospital bureaucracy. His gift was to be present, to actively listen, and to respond compassionately and thoughtfully to each individual who sought his counsel. He never rushed anyone. He never made promises he could not keep, and he told his clients the truth on all occasions. Mark worked quietly, always one-on-one, and his modesty and humanity were gifts that he shared with his patients and coworkers. Mark gave equal attention to the well-being of his coworkers and their families. He was instrumental in the implementation of quarterly memorial services for people with HIV at the county that included patients, friends, community members, and occasionally coworkers. He took great care in staying connected with each of his coworkers, and he relished any and all opportunities to celebrate the joy in this life with wild parties at his home and wicked wit that could break the relentless stories of suffering at the clinic. Mark was the soul of resilience for our team. May he rest in the same peace that he brought to countless souls in the dark early days of AIDS in Chicago. Thank you, Renslow. So, I'm going to read a little passage from this book written by Sidney Lewis, who interviewed many people who worked at Cook County Hospital. Dr. Mark Sherman has a skittish manner. While speaking, he frequently waves his hands and arms around and jiggles in his seat. He said, "Sometimes I wonder why I'm working here, the amount I make. Why am I working for so little? But when I look at how many poor people there are in the world, it's like, well, I'm rich. Someone told me I have to stop comparing myself to the third world." He laughed. He was a psychologist. Get this book. It's old. This impression of our Mark, part of an oral history of Cook County Hospital, is spot on. It was written in 1994 by historian Sidney Lewis, who worked with Studs Terkel for 30 years. Mark was an Silence is good, too. Mark was an anomaly on many levels. He went for an informational interview at County in 1979 with absolutely no intention of staying there for 23 years, before he took an early retirement in 2002. It's a good thing he did. Once he retired, he always said he never knew how he ever found the time to work. He enjoyed life and gave himself 2 full decades to live it to the fullest, filled with adventures. After working in a hospital's emergency room, it's no wonder he had no interest in going to the ER when the sepsis that took his life so quickly deceived us by presenting as food poisoning or the flu. He found ways to effectively balance his work and playtime, an enviable configuration. When we first got together in the early 80s, he worked a 4-day week. What a concept. Totally new to me. I was secretly so jealous of his 4-day weeks and 3-day weekends. The man sure knew how to take good care of his precious soul. His playful, childlike quality served him well. He leaned way in before leaning in was even a thing. He would tilt his head in a bird-like way, listen intently, and connect with you deeply in an instant. His carriage always reminded me of a question mark, which was one of my nicknames for him, as he was one of the most curious people you'd ever want to meet, the perfect attribute for a psychologist. He would put you at ease instantly with his gentle probing and interest in learning more about you. I knew right away this was going to work once I observed how he lived. Lighting was always key. He had a well-appointed kitchen, yet what really sealed the deal for me was his deep clawfoot bathtub with the obligatory sandalwood-scented candle right next to it to subtly illuminate that long, hot soak. Even though we got a late start, we enjoyed our ride together for 42 years. We didn't really embrace the terms husband and wife, preferring traveling companions. We were traveling through life together. We were at our best on the road, discovering faraway places with strange-sounding names, something we both dreamed about as children. But let us focus on the wonderful time we had together just last week, in South Haven, Michigan, which turned out to be the last week of his life. Perhaps his gentle old soul was wise enough to choose to begin relocating from his body, as he knew the world would not be recovering anytime soon. He came full circle, as South Haven is a place Mark had gone all his life with his family, and ultimately turned out to be the place where the illness that took him from us began to take hold. We cavorted in the calm, smooth water, playing on the sandbars that would suddenly appear and then dip down and go a little deeper. You may know that he was a breast cancer survivor. This trip to the Michigan shore was the very first time he bared his upper body naked to the world as a single-breasted person. He felt sublimely liberated. This was a really big deal. He dove right in on the first day when the water was as smooth as glass. It was pure Mark, seizing the moment with such gusto. His life force was palpable. Me, I waded in up to my neck, and we stood there together on tiptoe, our bodies close, feeling the cross currents from all directions, enjoying nature's hydrotherapy massage. The second day, there were more waves, and we let the lake toss us around. It was just glorious. The weather was perfect. Mark was an ageless wonder. He was Pan, this is Peter Pan. He was Pan, seeking pleasure always. One of his childhood friends called him Peter Pan, and she was right. She gave him this. There certainly was a resemblance. Another anomaly was he was an exceedingly non-toxic and very fluid man. He made everyone he encountered, feel seen, heard, and certainly not judged. Yet even though his soul was gentle, it was troubled by what he saw coming. Nonetheless, he always sought and certainly elicited joy. Our new next-door neighbors have a 14-month-old boy who Mark connected with instantly. When I knocked on their door last Tuesday to thank them for their kindness during this unbearable time, he pointed toward the space beyond where I was standing in front of their doorway and repeated, "Mark, Mark, Mark," over and over. He seemed to sense that Mark was somehow still around. Another neighbor, also a psychologist, they're everywhere, told me about current literature exploring the possibility that babies and small children can see spirits. Who knows? Mark said that when he was a boy, he thought each time someone died, a baby was born. Early Tuesday morning, our beloved niece Carly, Andy and Linda's daughter, gave birth to baby Clara Josephine 11 days before her due date. I think Mark was involved. Who knows? It's been a long, strange trip, and I wouldn't have it any other way. The world may have lost a brilliant light, yet the sky has a new star. Happy travels, my love. Fare thee well. May we meet again in the stardust.
Thank you, Holly. We're going to take a moment to listen to one of their favorite songs. Whenever you're ready.
If my words did glow with the gold of sunshine, and my tunes were played on the harp unstrung, would you hear my voice come through the music? Would you hold it near as it were your own? It's a hand-me-down. The thoughts are broken. Perhaps they're better left unsung. I don't know. Don't really care. Let there be songs to fill the air. Rippled in still water, when there is no pebble tossed, no wind to blow, reach out your hand. If your cup be empty, if your cup is full, may it be again, let it be known. There is a fountain that was not made by the hands of men. There is a road, no simple highway between the dawn and the dark of night. And if you go, no one may follow. That path is for your steps alone. Ripple in still water, when there is no pebble tossed, no wind to blow, you choose to lead, must follow. But if you fall alone. If you should stand, then who's to guide you? If I knew the way, I would take you home. La da da da, la da da da, la da da, la da.
On to the next one. Thank you, Stephen, for that. That's beautiful. So if you happened to look to the east last night, you would have noticed a full moon rising over the lake or the horizon wherever you found yourself, a super blue moon. This will not happen again for, I think, another 15 years at this point. What that also means, though, is that we've begun the countdown towards the new moon, and with it, Rosh Hashanah and a new year. And for those in the Jewish community, this is a time of reflecting on the past year and looking ahead to the new. And in that moment, we hold both what is no longer with us, what we've lost, and also the possibility of what the future holds. And it's these moments in which we hold joy and possibility and hope, but also loss and sadness and regret together. I think we're at our most human. And so however you show up in the space, however you're grieving, to know that what you bring here, everything you're holding, is exactly how it should be. Rosh Hashanah is also a time of celebrating the world. We say it's the birthday of the world. And so I think as we navigate these weeks and months ahead, remembering Mark, I think one of the best ways that we can remember him is to embody that wonder and that love of the world, to experience it as if it's coming into being for the very first time, whether it's spending time outside in beautiful places like this or in exploring new cuisines in different parts of the world or different communities, different people, whether it's actually just seeing each other in their wholeness of being, to recognize the world that exists within each and every person and to value that and to cherish that. I think those are not only appropriate, but very sacred ways to remember this individual. So as we close this part of our time together, we're going to say a prayer that is traditionally said for those in mourning. And I think appropriate to the way that Mark gathered community around him, I would love if folks would gather around his loved ones. And so we're going to say the Mourner's Kaddish. And so if folks don't mind standing up if you're able, and as Holly, and Tony, and Lisa lead us in the Mourner's Kaddish alongside his loved ones, his family, his friends. We really don't have to be this formal. Come in, folks, come in. We're gathering around to be in community with one another. To remind each other that even when Mark is gone, the people he's brought together in love still can hold each other. We are on the final page of this pamphlet where it says the Mourner's Kaddish. Are you ready? Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabban Be'alma divra chirutei ve'amlich malchutei B'chayechon u'yomechon u'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael Ba'agala u'bizman kari v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam umei omaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh V'yit hadar, v'yit alei, v'yit halal, shemei dekudisha brichul, la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Mark's memory always be for a blessing for each and every one of us. And thank you all for being here today. I believe next we have a Shiva gathering at Laura Redmond's place. And tomorrow there'll be a Shiva gathering at 3 p.m. at Holly's place as well. Anything else you'd like to share?
Yes, there's a beautiful photo montage inside the house.
Oh, in this house here.
That Dustin put together. From hundreds of photographs. So if you want to see pictures of Mark's life, go inside this beautiful home. There's 4 monitors, and each one has a different segment of his life. And I also want to just make a shout out.
Holly, do you use the microphone? Oh, I can move it. For those who missed it, there's a beautiful photo montage in the house. And
there are 4 monitors inside the house, which is beautiful, that Dustin and Christina put together from decades of Mark's life, and they're in four. It's not the same thing on each one. So go wander in there and look at his life a bit before the Shiva. And I think there's something else, but it's a blur. Take care, and thank you all for being with me and for being with Mark.